Welcome back to the Glow Up Girl podcast. I am Kyra, and today I'm so excited to have my friend Nelly Yusupova. Yes,
You did it.
yes. I'm so excited to have Nelly with me today. She is going to really school us, because when I had a conversation with you earlier, I left that conversation and was like, oh my God, I feel so much smarter now, because Nelly is so amazing and she is so smart and a digital, I want to call you a digital maven, because you are that. And I'm so glad to have you here to educate and inform the audience today. So welcome, Nelly, to the Glow Up Girl podcast.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. I can't wait for our conversation and all the things that we'll share.
Awesome. Well, we're going to go ahead and dive in. Go ahead and tell the audience about your journey.
Sure. So I am currently a CTO. I'm a startup tech advisor. And I also have an online course called TechSpeak for Entrepreneurs, where I teach predominantly non-technical entrepreneurs how to start app businesses and do it without being technical or knowing how to code. So that's kind of the main things that I'm working on right now.
Awesome. Well, I think what you do is really cool, because so many people have a fear of technology. And I definitely think, with everything that's happened with COVID and us being really having to depend on digital, for everything in our lives, I think that so many people sort of shy away from it. A lot of people are like, no, I don't want to do that. But I think
what's actually cool about COVID, the one positive thing that it did for us, I guess, is that it accelerated the adoption of technology by at least 5 years in my mind. And so the opportunities for anyone who wants to get into this field are so vast right now. Anyone who wants to solve a problem, because literally every single business, no matter what field you're in, how technical it is, or whether it's not in the tech industry at all, it literally needs some tech solutions. And so here's an opportunity for you to be a creator and use your existing experiences to spot a problem and actually build something.
Yes, because that is, you're right. Because that is the thing with code, everything sort of turned to people to oh, wait, how do we get this platform? How do we talk to our customers? How do we talk to our partners? How do we put together a portal or place where people can land and get information quickly? So there were a lot of people that if you just knew a little bit, you were dangerous. That's what I said. I was like, if you just know a little bit, you're dangerous, because a lot of other people don't know. So you're able to just sort of dive in and look like the rock star.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. All right. So one of the things that we talked about when you and I originally spoke was your mantra of learn early, learn often, learn cheap. So let's talk about Digital Woman and how you help individuals and businesses to minimize mistakes and maximize efficiencies.
Sure. So Digital Woman is my consulting arm. This is where I work with entrepreneurs one-on-one usually. And what I bring to the table is, over the years, is I've managed many teams and projects, and of all different sizes. And I've created what I believe is the most efficient and effective way for someone to manage development teams and projects, whether they're technical or not. It's a very systematic process, right? And so the key in my mind to a successful process is to be able to see the red flags sooner, because the sooner you can spot something, the sooner you can course correct. And it's unrealistic to think that people are not going to make mistakes, right? Because I make mistakes all the time. The key, again, is to catch mistakes sooner and earlier, because the sooner you can catch them, the sooner you can course correct. And so through me working with people one-on-one, or even at TechSpeak, my goal is to teach people how to spot the red flags, how to see them sooner rather than later, because those red flags are always there. And if you don't have enough experience to know when they're there, then to you, it'll seem like it's a normal situation. But for someone who's a little bit more experienced, they can say that, like, when people share their horror stories with me, as they're telling me the story, I'm like, uh-oh, red flag, uh-oh, red flag, right? And so you want to get to a point where you understand enough about the process of, like, the step-by-step of how things should be done, and then also be able to communicate in a language that the other person understands. And then you'll be able to do the same. You'll be able to know, like, if somebody tells you this is the way it should be done, and you already have some background information on that, you've done that, you've had some experience with it, you're like, no, I don't think so. It's like going to a car mechanic without knowing anything about cars. Right? You literally will believe everything they tell you. And so it's the same thing with technology or managing projects or anything like that. So get educated, understand your power, understand the process, and you'll be able to spot the red flags as well. So that's my goal when I work with clients or students, is to teach them how to spot those red flags.
Okay. And what process or what advice do you give to someone who is interested in a career in technology, or someone who, but they just, again, there's somebody who's like, I don't know a lot, or people are just fearful because it seems like it's something that's too big for them to to tackle.
All right. So I'm going to share a very personal story about how I got started. And I think that'll put into context a lot of the things that I'm talking about. So when I decided to major in computer science in college, I thought they were going to teach me how to use Microsoft Word and Microsoft Excel really, really well. I mean, that's how clueless I was about what programming was, what tech was. I had no concept of writing code and telling the computer what to do, right? In fact, I turned on the computer for the very first time in the computer science lab. So that's where I come from. I know and feel the pain of people who don't know anything, and it seems completely foreign to you. And in the beginning, when I was starting the program, it was absolutely hard. Like, I will not lie to you, but because to me, failure was not an option. I literally just grabbed on. I asked a lot of questions. I was really determined, and in fact, finished in 3 years instead of the standard 4, my degree. So I share that story because number one, I feel the pain. I know what it's like. And number two, it's because, like, it's to show that if you're really determined, that if you really want something, then nothing is really impossible. Everything is learnable. I think the first step to achieving anything is working on the mindset that it can be done, that you are good enough to learn this, that you already have everything you need to learn. And the difference between a person who achieves and a person who doesn't is really making that decision that I'm going to do anything in my power, because all the information is out there. You just have to learn.
Right.
Time and energy and the focus. So yes, there's no excuses.
No, I like that. And I think too, like you said, sort of this almost like failing fast type scenario where it's like, why not, try it. If you make a mistake or you fail the first time, I mean, just course correct, do it again, because don't stop. And I think that's super important. And I think even more important in the tech industry, and especially for women, because a lot of times women shy away from those roles or those opportunities because, like you said, it's like, oh, maybe I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I don't know. But what type of opportunities, what are you seeing out there in the industry that you see are some of the, I guess, greatest opportunity areas for women right now?
So I think if you want to become a developer, I mean, there's absolutely no way you're not going to have a job or a career in that field, because number one, that's where everything is going. And number two, if you're a woman, actually everybody wants to diversify their staff and now make it an effort now to be able to do that. So you'll always have a job. Now, on the other side, if you want to be an entrepreneur, there's also a ton of opportunities. So instead of using technology, being the user of technology, you can actually create technology. You can use the unique opportunities and experiences that you've had, any domain expertise that you've accumulated throughout your years. Only you have and are privy to the seeing the problems that you deal with on a daily basis. So I have certain experiences, you have certain experiences, and you could be in real estate and see a lot of inefficiencies there that could be solved very easily with technology and software. And so instead of complaining about those things not being efficient, you can actually take charge and say, you know what, I'm going to solve this problem and I'm going to make a lot of money doing it. So, right. So that's the mindset. I think no matter where you go, if you are in tech, whether you're go work in the tech industry or decide to become a tech entrepreneur, possibilities are endless.
Yes, I love that. So obviously, you are a resource. So I want you to talk about your learning platform, TechSpeak. When did you start it? What's the story behind it, and what does the program entail, and how can people take advantage of it?
Sure. So TechSpeak started as a result of me going out and speaking to lots of entrepreneurs at conferences across the country and around the world. And after every single event, literally had hundreds of people around me sharing their horror stories, whether it's because I'm a woman, maybe a female CTO, it could be, I don't know what the reason was, but I literally heard every single story on the planet about thousands of dollars that entrepreneurs lost simply because what I realized later, they couldn't communicate properly with developers. They couldn't manage the process. They couldn't ask the right questions. And so at first I actually blamed the developers. I could not understand how they could be so mean and take advantage of these poor entrepreneurs. But the more I actually thought about it, the more I realized that most often the problem lies with the entrepreneur. So even if you have a bad developer on your hand, it's your responsibility to know that they're a bad developer. It's your responsibility by implementing a specific process to, again, spot that red flag and be able to catch it sooner. It's your responsibility to learn how to communicate in their language so that you're communicating effectively. All of these things that seem so natural to me because I do this every single day. I was like, why isn't there anything like that literally takes you from an idea to launch, how step by step how to do that? And I tried to search for it. It wasn't there. And so that was my opportunity. I created the program in 2012. And it used to be, for the longest time, an in-person boot camp that I would teach over a 2-day period, for 16 hours a day. For 16 hours over a weekend. And I just saw the transformation that happened when a person walked in and when a person walked out. That confidence that exuded from them was just so empowering for me. I just was addicted to that, and I wanted to do more and more of them. And so the whole idea behind TechSpeak is a 10-step process. Most people, I'm not sure if you've ever experienced this, but if you think of a tech idea, the first thing you think about is, I need to find a developer to help me build it. Well, in my 10-step process, writing code is step number 8. That means that there are 7 steps that entrepreneurs need to go through in preparation for development. And those first 2 steps could be done independently of developers. And that's validating the idea and building a prototype, again, without writing a line of code. And the reason why those 2 steps are important is because most products, shockingly to a lot of non-technical people, is not because they couldn't be built, but because those products were never needed in the first place. And so my goal in teaching that is that, hey, you can take your good idea and refine it to be a painkiller. And the reason why you want a painkiller is because if you can find something that directly solves a pain, the customers will be much more willing to not only use your product, but also to pay you for it. So if your goal is to charge for your product from day one, you need to find that painkiller problem. And so through validation, which is not market research, it's kind of a subset of it, but it's really intense one-on-one discussions, framing the questions in a way that elicit feedback without you leading them to your solution. So you have to be almost like walking in with a blank slate and forget about your solution, so that you can gather the insights that are necessary to be able to find the painkiller. And then the second step is to create, based on what you heard, create a possible solution to with a clickable prototype. So it's kind of like a fake app. You can run it on any device that you decide that you want to serve it up for the customers, on a mobile device or in a web browser. And people can actually use it. They're so interactive that you can actually click and use and test the idea without writing a line of code. And what that allows you to do is to refine it even further before you get into development. And just doing those two steps will save you thousands of dollars.
Right.
And then steps 3 to 7 is all about preparing for the MVP. So there's a concept called in the lean startup philosophy, which is what I implement. One of the, pillars of my process is the lean startup. And the concept of learn early, learn often, learn cheap. And what this means is that instead of building the entire thing, you try to break up the project into smaller steps for many reasons. Number one, it's much easier to manage. And the idea here in the learn early, learn often, learn cheap philosophy is that you need to learn. The learning is at the core of the concept, is this, because the sooner you can learn something, the sooner you can know if you're going in the right direction. And so you're systematically reducing the risk. You're minimizing the risk of failure by taking smaller steps in the right direction and adjusting and course correcting. So that's the idea behind the lean startup methodology. And so in steps 3 to 7, you're going to define your MVP, which stands for minimal viable product. And you're only going to build that small. So like if you think of a regular product to be 20 features, your MVP could have maybe 3 to 5 of those features. And then your goal would be to launch that as quickly as possible so that you can start to learn from actual customers using your product, what works, what doesn't work, how can your product be improved, how can you decide what to build next, etc. And so your product roadmap of the rest of the 16 features is still there, but you might actually determine once the product is in the hands of your customers that, you know what, we need to push those back a little bit and work on this first, because that's what we learned that our customers need. And what that allows you to do is to refine the product to actually be something that your customer needs versus guessing that that's something your customer needs.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yep. Yes. A lot of people fail at that today.
It's really what I love about the lean startup is that it allows you to systematically, by setting up these learning experiments, to systematically create a startup that is all about experimenting, right? Yeah. And because those experiments are small, the smaller the experiments, the sooner you can course correct, right? So the sooner you can learn, and the sooner you can course correct. And so it really takes a lot of the risk out of a startup if you approach it that way.
And you're actually, like you said, you're actually creating something that the customer wants versus just something that you want to create.
Yeah. So the notion of building the solution for a problem versus finding the problem first and then the solution.
Yes. No, I love that. So how can people find the TechSpeak? How can they sign up for your courses?
So you just have to go to techspeak.co or techspeakforentrepreneurs.com. It leads to the same place, and all the information is right there. And if people are interested in just starting out with the validation portion of it, they can just buy those pieces, and then if they want to move forward like that in small steps, just like I practice, right? I broke up the course into smaller steps that you can achieve. And the whole idea is to help you really just move forward really quickly and efficiently without the guesswork. And
yes,
I target it specifically for non-technical people who don't have any experience in tech, right? Because that to me is really important. And that kind of sets me aside. I mean, apart from any other teacher, because I told you where I came from. I actually have so much empathy for people who don't know information and how hard it is to learn it.
right.
So, I think that was ingrained in me as I was coming up as an entrepreneur, that's the way
Right.
you should be teaching it.
Yes. And that's definitely, I mean, I think you always want to learn from someone who is empathetic to your needs or where you are in the process. And I think because you've experienced it and it's like you've walked the journey, so you are now gifting that what all you've done all the work and now you're gifting that to other people, which I think is really amazing.
Well, what's funny about that is when I was developing TechSpeak, I literally thought it was going to take me 2 weeks to build it. And what I realized is that it took me more than 3 months to build it. And it's because even though I knew all of this information, when I started teaching it or breaking it down into step by step, I had to take all of this information, which is a lot of information, and condense it in just a small workshop. So I had to take only the essential concepts and put them in a way that they really could understand the entire module, and then take away the essentials so that they can start doing the work.
Right.
So that's why I think the course is so special, because it takes all of my experience and knowledge and workings of like working with actual teams and just putting that into like literally giving it to you so that you can learn from it.
Yes, and it seems, and it's also seems to be very digestible chunks. So yes. So I think that is definitely that makes it less scary.
Yes, I think in general, when you're learning anything, whether it's tech or finances, or I mean, literally anything, I think the reason why it seems so scary in the beginning is because it's literally a black box. And then as you start to take little steps and learning the basics, you then start to make connections that before would have just gone right past you, right?
Yes.
Because you didn't know anything. But now that you know, you're like, oh, that connects to that. And that
exactly.
And it just changes you as a person. As you start to learn even the basics and fundamentals, it changes the way you start to think about things in that vertical, in that sector.
Yes.
So, everything's learnable.
I love that. And definitely as a person who enjoys like learning, I think we talked about this. I'm like, I feel like, you always have to be evolving, and and that involves learning. So you just can't be fearful of anything, especially things that you can do online. I mean, anything that I can do online, I'm like, oh yeah, I'll take it, and you just take your time with it. And
think about it this way. I think this is such an important point. Since I had kids, I started thinking about that. Like, we are always telling our kids to learn, to go do it. It's possible. But when it comes to ourselves as adults, like, we take a whole different approach. Like, we're different than our kids, just take the same advice you give to your kids,
Yeah.
And it's literally just taking the step and making the decision to do it.
Exactly. That is so spot on. I mean, it's a first step always. You hear that, everybody? Just take the first step. All right. So we're at the point of the conversation where I get to do something fun with you as well. 5 things with Nelly. So 5 just random questions about things that you do. I always think it is interesting to learn the sort of inner workings of how your mind works. So 1, what do you do when you wake up in the morning?
So my mornings are a little bit chaotic because, as I mentioned, I have 2 kids, toddlers under 5.
Bless you.
So you wake up and you don't have a morning. That's really my answer is you just do the things that need to be done quickly. You feed them and it's very chaotic. But I think you get used to working in that way, and actually it helps you in the rest of your day, because nothing else seems like it's as hard as the morning. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I agree. So what's a favorite current project that you're working on, if you can share?
Sure. I mean, this is a hard one for me because I try not to take on anything that I don't like. I'm in a good position right now in my business and in my personal life to just say no to things. And I think that's a very, very, very important thing for people to do, is to say no to things.
Yep.
So I think for me right now, the most exciting part is being able to work on TechSpeak. Now that it's online, I can talk to people from all around the world and bringing like entrepreneurial communities in all around the world. I'm talking to someone in India, I'm talking to someone in the UK and Australia and even Africa, of taking this program and putting it into the hands of entrepreneurs all across the world. And that to me is the most, like, literally exciting thing that makes me wake up every morning really, really happy.
Yes. No, I think that, I definitely think that is pretty cool. What's one thing that you really enjoy about teaching women entrepreneurs?
Knowing that if I give them the tools and the confidence to be able to move forward, like if you give those two things to women, the possibilities are literally endless, because women have the drive, they have the purpose, and they have the willingness to change the world. And if you give them the right tools and also the confidence, I think is a big piece of it, to be able to move forward. I mean, they're unstoppable. And I really love that about teaching specifically women. I mean, I teach both men and women, but specifically women, because I believe that if you give them the powers, these two things, that the possibilities are endless.
Yes, I agree. How do you push through a challenging day?
So I think the biggest arsenal in my pocket is the learn early, learn often, learn cheap. I always have that as a mindset for whether it's for business, for building products, or even my personal life. So if there's a challenge that I'm facing, I'm always thinking, okay, so this is such a big thing. Like, how can I break it up into smaller pieces? Maybe I can deal with this piece. And that will inform me a little bit on what the next step should be, right? So it takes a lot of the stress out of making the big decision of a challenge. And so I think that mindset really helps me move through and systematically eliminate things that I should or should not care about. And sometimes even understanding what's in your control and what's not in your control, right? That's really essential. Like, for example, when COVID happened, nothing we could do about it, right? This is totally out of our control. And so, yes, it's a challenge, but how can you see the opportunity in it? Right? That's the other part of the learn early, learn often, learn cheap, is you have a failure, you have a challenge, right? You have your experiment. The experiment can either succeed or fail. If it succeeds, great, you get more information to move forward. But if it fails, you also get a lot of information to move forward, right? You don't stop there, you don't wallow in it, but you're like, okay, what's the learning opportunity? What am I not seeing? Because the opportunities are always there. If we are emotionally invested in the negative feelings of failure, then we can't see those opportunities. And so I think, like, having that, it's already ingrained in me because I've been doing it for so many years. It's natural for me to think that way. But I think if you start to incorporate that into your life, it completely changes the challenges. It completely changes your the way you look at life also. Literally, if you want to change a career, instead of agonizing about the big move, you can say, okay, well, what are the small steps that I can take to achieving that? You figure out, maybe I can take an internship at a company that I want to work for, or like a company that I want to work for, so I can actually experience what it's like. So instead of agonizing about making the move, you can actually figure it out and actually experience it and then make a decision. So taking small steps always makes a big decision or a big thing or a big challenge a lot simpler to tackle.
Awesome. And last, after you put the kids down for the night, how do you relax? What do you do before you go to bed? How do you end the day?
So I usually work when my kids go to sleep. So I try to structure my day so that I do spend a lot of time with them. And so during the day, I make a point to spend time with them. And so when they go to bed, that's the second part of my working day, where I work on projects. And oftentimes it's actually a great time. I discovered this after them. It's a great time to kind of completely disconnect and work on projects that are more creative. That's where I get a lot of my writing done, a lot of my planning done, because no one else is working at that time and you're left alone. So after I'm done with my working day, I just try to figure out how to relax a little bit and maybe get on social media. Now it's on Clubhouse, listening to other things that are going on. I don't know if you are on Clubhouse. And it's awesome. So just like try to wind down and then go to bed.
Awesome. Well, hey, I like that. So tell the audience where they can find you online if they want to learn more about you or contact you.
Sure. So if you go to digitalwoman.com, you can find all the information about me. If you're interested in TechSpeak, go to techspeakforentrepreneurs.com. And I also do a lot of free classes. If you guys want to test out what some of these things are all about that I mentioned, just sign up for a free class and I'll be happy to work with you.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Nelly. This has been a great conversation, super informative. And I bet everybody listening to you today is leaving here a little bit smarter after they hear you. So I really appreciate you taking the time to join me on the podcast.
It was a pleasure. I enjoyed it.
Awesome. Well, I wish you all the success in the world, and you are always welcome here to come back and share any new news that you have with me and the audience.
I look forward to it.
Thank you. Well, stay tuned, everybody. I'll be right back.